My affiliation with Jamaat was there now because my dad was Naib Mir, so therefore, we've always had that Jamaat thingy, but I didn't think I had the connection with the Khuddam at that time.
It's just a generation thing for them because the measure of success is different, whereas the younger generations, the measure of success is different because we've experienced so much more than they have in this culture, in this society.
And the fact that we are all part of Khuddam and Ahmadiyya, and we're all serving the Jamaat in some way, shape or form, and we've also got a career, but the forefront of our motive and our aim is to serve the Jamaat, everything else will fall into play. Like if you chase God, the world will chase you.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Chit Chat Chai. So this is a new initiative from the Tarbiyat department of MKA. The purpose of this Chit Chat Chai show is to tackle the issues that are facing the youth. Every generation faces their challenges. We say it's all about prayer, having a good friendship, and also you yourself figuring yourself out. So today in this episode, we're going to be specifically talking about having your life figured out, especially at 16, 17, when you've just come out of done GCSEs, done A-levels, bringing out what you want to do career-wise, what your drives are, motivations, and actually just figuring out yourself, right? It's the first time we go to uni, discovering a bit more, getting into, having responsibilities and stuff. So we've got three other panelists on today. We've got Sabah, Anjum, and Danish. So why don't we start with Sabah? At 17, what were you doing? What was your life like? You're from Manchester.
Let's just bring it back to the topic, Chit, Chat and Chai. Don't know where the chai is.
Yeah,
is that provided by the host, or is it just like DIY, make your own tea? Because there's no chai. It's just looking like a chit chat at the moment.
Well, the next episode we'll teach you how to make chai, isn't it? We'll teach you how to make this.
Yeah. Then we can go. What was I doing? At 17, I was pretty just like everyone else, really. Just, not messing about, but I was at college doing my A-levels. I was working in retail. Wanted to be a police officer. Wanted to be a social worker. Wanted to be everything under the sun, all mixed into one. And being Vakfino, I had in the back of my mind, and it's the truth, that do I really want to carry my Vakfon? Do I really want to dedicate my life for the service of religion? And literally one morning I woke up, I said, Mum, look, I want to give my life for the service of religion. I want to become missionary. And Mum was over the moon. Because as parents, they always wanted me to go to Jamia.
Just overnight? Just like that?
Literally overnight. And I kid you not, that's exactly what happened. So I was just as shocked as my mum was. Anyway, woke up in the morning, I said, I want to go to Jamia, and then she said, I applied and whatever, and they were over the moon. It's probably the second time I've seen my dad cry ever in his life. The first time I saw him cry was when Khalifa Rabi passed away. And the second time I saw him cry was when the letter came through the post, saying that you've been accepted for Jamia. So I don't know if he was crying because he thought, oh my gosh, this is great, or oh my gosh, my son's on a flop horribly. And he's going to be back in 6 months, and he's basically going to be a bestie to my whole life. Yeah. I didn't know what it was. It was one or the other. I hope it was the first thing. Anyway, I went to Jamia. I did 7 years. It was challenging. That's the truth. I'm not the sharpest tool in the box. I do struggle academically. By the grace of Allah and the prayers of Huzur, and I really worked my socks off.
Yeah.
I managed to get through 7 years.
Did you have any doubts straight away, or you were just...
No, you know what? I didn't. And that was what was surprising. It was that the first few months I was like, oh wow, this is a whole different walk of life. They take your phone off you. It's like being in the army, literally. Wake up in the morning, your bed's got to be made, your clothes are got to be ironed, you've got to be looking presentable, and then you have assembly and whatever, and then you go to lessons. And the first few months were challenging. That's the truth. But then you got on with it and you dealt with it and you go with the flow and you realize that, hold on, look, it's about the end game and what I want to do in life and where this is going to lead me. And it was ultimately to become missionary and serve the Jamaat. And slowly you realize that whatever is required of me, I'll do it, because that is what dedication is. Life devotion is you give your life for the service of religion, for the service of Jamaat, and then Huzur decides what happens and where you work to serve the Jamaat. But you have to go with the rules and regulations. Like you go to school, you follow the rules and whatever.
So for you, it seems like literally at 17, you made that decision and there was no messing around. Like you kind of had you had obviously Khilafat there. You had that system there, right? For you to be very much on that path. What about Anjum?
Yeah.
What about you, Anjum? Like you at 17?
Me at 17. Again, this is going back a few years now for me. At 17.
A few years. Let's be honest there.
It's a decade, mate.
It's a few years.
More than a decade late for me.
Well, how old is everyone, by the way?
I'm 34.
I'm 28.
I'm 17. No,
It's a good beard you're growing there, 17.
I'm 29.
All right, I'm 26. Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah, at 17. The one thing I'd say was I was quite interested in kind of A levels, chemistry, and all that kind of stuff. So kind of the pharmaceuticals was something I was quite interested in. That's kind of what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, I didn't get the A level results I needed to get into the university or the course I wanted to do. I ended up going through clearing to a university at the time I wasn't comfortable with, but it was one of those things that I was like, I need to go to uni. Everybody's going to uni. All my friends are going to uni. You've got to go to uni now.
How did you pick your uni choice?
Initially, I wanted to go somewhere in London, one of the big unis there.
Okay.
End up being in Reading through clearing. And, in hindsight, it's one of those things that maybe if I'd taken an extra year, maybe to redo my A levels, maybe got the results and the grades that I wanted to go to, that was something I kind of came to kind of towards the end of my uni time.
Yeah.
So it was what it was. I was at Reading. But for me, two things happened while I was at uni that I think in one way or another, my connection with the Jamaat increased now. Kind of going back slightly to kind of when I was growing up, we used to live in a small, very English town of Salisbury. The Jamaat, from the Jamaat point of view, it was only us in that town. The closest people were about good 30, 40 miles away.
Would you describe yourself as a coconut?
At that time, my cousins told me that.
Okay, fair enough. Whose phone was that?
Sorry, that was mine.
All right.
My wife trying to find out where I am. Yeah.
Fair enough. So you carry on. You were saying you.
So my affiliation with Jamaat was there now because my dad was Naib Emir, so therefore we've always had that Jamaat thingy. But I didn't think I had the connection with the Khuddam at that time. Which kind of when I went to uni and the more I got exposed to the Jamaat from not so much at uni but through connections in London, that increased. And then I kind of by the end of uni I kind of realised my uni friends were one thing, my Jamaat friends, I had a closer affiliation with them and I felt more comfortable being around them and not kind of doing, as you said, the coconut thing.
Yeah. What about you, Danish? Like what was your 17, what you did?
17, so I would have just started college. Similar to Anjum really, where I went to college, didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to. Okay, maybe not too similar to Anjum. He wanted to go into chemistry and stuff, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was too concerned about friends and going out to play football and stuff like that. Really, so studies and career choices weren't really at the forefront of my thoughts. So I ended up going to college. I did A levels. Didn't really enjoy it, to be fair. Ended up. Go on.
No, I was gonna say what you didn't enjoy it. So what was the reason why you just you weren't academic? You weren't
I guess it's one of those cultural things as well, where you have to go college, you have to go university, kind of thing. And I think maybe now with the new generation of parents like myself, like Sabah, the thought process might be changing a little bit. But when I was growing up, both my brothers, they went college, they went university, and it was just, I guess it was the thing to do really. And I don't think I had the guts to tell my parents that I don't enjoy studying or I don't enjoy going to the college. So I just kind of just stuck it out, and then I stuck another 3 years out at uni, which I didn't want to go to uni. But my brother kind of not forced me into it, but he just said, look, having a degree is a good thing for the long term. You'll have help you with your career choices, which it hasn't. Like what I learned at university, which wasn't much, but it definitely hasn't helped in my career. But it was a good experience.
What was it? So can I ask you, why was it a good experience?
I just mean it's like, I take that back. It wasn't a good experience.
But it was no. It must have been, even if it was a good or bad experience. The experience that taught you something. Like for me, at 17, I'll be honest with you. I just wanted to make cash money because I was in Kensington.
That's still you now.
Yeah, but it's different, isn't it? Like it's a bit more purpose. It's purposeful cash, purposeful money, right? Spending it in the right way for humanity. Yeah, 17, literally, like, because I was around people who were like super wealthy, like we're talking oligarchs' children, people living like billionaires, and I was just like, this is crazy, man.
What second? Whoa.
Yeah.
Where did you used to live?
I went to college.
Billionaires.
I promise you, I went to college in Kensington, and these guys were seriously wealthy. I mean, we're talking like, Top Shop, Top Band. That guy's daughter was there at my college. She was like a year two below me. She's like crazy. She was like flying back and forth from Monaco as if it was, everyone does that every weekend. I was like, that's insane. And that just got me the urge. And then I went into finance. That's what I wanted to do. And obviously I realized afterwards later on that actually, I don't really like the people around me. Like when you go into and you meet the people, you're just like, you guys are just messed up. Like,
So, to ask you a question, do you regret going to a university like that or a college like that?
What? To be honest with you, it depends. That's all I knew, right? So that's who I am now. It's defined me. That's my experiences. I don't know. Like if I'd gone somewhere else, I'd be a different person. So I can't say. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you regret college? The thing is, for my dad, he didn't go to private school, right? So he sent all of his kids to private school because he said that he wants the best for his kids. I got a different experience, right? And I was like, do I want to send my kids to private school? Because is that going to be the best experience for them? Because I see something else, and my dad obviously saw something else, right? And whereas I saw, well, there aren't people of faith, right? Most people aren't religious. What people get up to is something different. And actually, I was maybe one of 3 Muslims in class or at school, and that affects you, doesn't it? Because when you're the only person, everybody starts questioning you. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why don't you get involved in this?
But I had kind of similar. Cause when I went to school, I said in a very middle class white area.
Yeah.
I was, apart from one other Asian guy, I was the only. There's 2 Asian people in my whole school, and the other one, we were both Muslim. But obviously they know we didn't drink, we didn't eat pork, even though he went off and did his own things. I kind of always stuck to that. But then, as you said, it was one of those things that you constantly get asked about your faith. And, there's a time when it was all quite very cool and I'm happy to talk about Islam and all that kind of stuff. But then it got to a stage where you kind of started feeling a bit, I wouldn't say singled out, but there was a clear difference between me and them. Because, when we got to 17, 18, they're all talking about who's getting their ID to go buy drink and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, then else, do we need to go to the park with cans or whatever? Can we go play football and just play football? Not, or do we have to think about how we're going to get into this club because we're 17?
I'll give you an example, right? So when I was in college, right, 17, everyone was doing drugs, right? Even my like closest friends were doing drugs, right? And it was just like me not doing it. It just pushed you further and further away, right? And it was just so difficult then to stay social with these people.
No, but hold on. No.
There's so much. Oh, really? Okay.
You know what? I think it comes down to character. I think in life there are 2 types of characters. One's a leader and one's a follower.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think
that's the thing, because I know you a upper class school on a champagne drugs and all that kind of stuff. Are we talking kind of weed stuff, or are we talking actually hardcore coke and all that kind of stuff?
So it was. I mean, there was the hardcore lot who just went off the rails, but everyone was doing the standard stuff.
Okay.
But again, like you said, I agree with you. So, like there was that leader thing. I didn't do it, and that was cool. I explained principles, right? And they were cool with me. But there was a point where there's only certain, like you can't socialize with them in every aspect. What do you think, Don? It's like you must have the certain, like. I think if you do sports, that really helps because that gets you out of the stuff. You've got something to do, like you're moving, you're doing stuff, gets your energy out. But I don't know, there were certain points where I was just like, you can't hang around all the time with them because it's that temptation, right? How much willpower do you actually have to hang around with people that are constantly doing bad stuff? Like you can't, it rubs off on you, and then to a point where you end up distancing yourself a bit. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Again, my own personal experiences, I've been around a lot of people who've been drinking and all that kind of stuff, whether that's university or work as well.
Yeah.
The work I do now, I've got to take clients out, and one of those things is there's going to be drink there. I personally have never felt tempted. I've never felt the urge to get involved.
Yeah.
I will, however, say that I've always felt a little bit on the outside because of it. because I don't drink. And I refuse to. And, there have been times when people, and they will jokingly say, don't worry, we won't tell your parents, we won't tell your family. It's like, well, it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's something I know what I can, what my faith says I can and I can't do. And that's something I'm not going to do. It's the same doing fasting when you're working or at university. Oh, mate, have a pizza or have a crisp. We won't tell anyone. It's like, well, it's not about telling anyone. It's whether I know is it something I should be doing or not.
Yeah. And what do you think, Danish? Like, you've been awfully quiet. Sounds like you've kind of. Any thoughts?
No, for me, I was just trying to understand in regards to, distancing yourself from people that perhaps are doing all these things that, us as Muslims don't do. For me, I was, I grew up, I went to school in a quite multicultural school where, where the white kids were the minority. And, college, I went to a predominantly white college. It was a Catholic college. So it was a massive culture shock for me. I didn't necessarily enjoy it, but I feel like having grown up around, different cultures really kind of makes, these sort of decisions perhaps a little bit easier, where, people understand. So all my friends, even though, friends that aren't Muslims, they smoke, they drink, they go out and stuff like that. But I've never really felt that, they've always respected me for not being involved with those things. And they've kind of understood that. And I think that's maybe the culture that I've grown in, being a very multicultural. It might be different if if you're grown up in a white society where those are the things that are the norm. So I think from that aspect, it was a little bit easier for me to not really follow those things. None of that really attracted me anyway. But I think I was always surrounded by people that didn't do those things, and also surrounded by people that did do them. But everyone had that mutual respect for each other, that you do you, I'm going to do me. And, it was never a problem.
Fair enough. That's a fair point. I feel like it's also, Anjum, you can probably rate, like the minute you slip up on one thing, it's just a downhill, right? It's like a series on. The minute you sort of break one thing with your faith, you just end up going down. You can potentially go down a downhill spiral, right? Because you just push you to a certain level. That's why
I agree and disagree with that.
All right.
There are certain things that I think you might be open to trying just to see what it's like. But then in your mentally, you've got this is my hard boundary, this is my hard line. I do not go past this point.
What do you think about that? This concept of experimenting. People saying, "Well, I'm just experimenting. What's wrong with it? I'm just trying it out."
Do you know what? Come back down to having two characters. Look, one character is gonna be, look, I'm gonna do it, whatever. I'll go with the flow. It's okay. I'll try it. Let's see what happens. Yeah. The other person is who doesn't learn from people's mistakes. Rather, he knows that, look, I'm not going to do it. My character is strong enough to carry on and push through these difficult times and challenging times. Okay. Now, those people that experiment, look, whatever is wrong within Islam. Yeah? The Holy Quran says that God has made man weak. We're human beings, we make mistakes. Yeah. Some people have to make mistakes to learn from them. And once they made a mistake, they come back stronger. The same with prayer. But 4 days a week, you might do your namaz 5 times a day. On the 5th day, you might do your namaz once. And then on the 6th day, you'll be like, hold on, I made a mistake. I was doing so well. I dropped off. I was at 40%. Now I'm going to pick myself up and go to 70%. And then you come back stronger. So some people might make mistakes, but then they build on that and make a mistake and realize, hold on, I shouldn't have done that. And they carry on and become better people. And the other person is, no, look, I'm not making that mistake. I'm going to try as hard as I can. Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't think there's obviously it's wrong to drink alcohol. It's wrong to go clubbing and have these experiences. But can we lead someone by the neck and say, no, you're not doing this or you're not doing this? It's people have their own conscience. Everyone is responsible for their own actions. The Holy Quran says that you'll not bear anybody else's burden on the Day of Judgment. We as brothers to help each other should be there to say, look, you know what? If you want a hand or if you're stuck, we'll give you a hand and try and pull you out of the situation. Or instead of going to the club, why don't we go for a coffee or why don't we go to Krispy Kremes or whatever? And it's about using that Jamaat network which we have to say, look, we're here as brothers. That's why I have MKA. So you have different departments. You've got SED, you've got Khidmat Clerk, you've got other departments, Tarbiyat departments, to hold events to keep our youth engaged so that there's no time for them to go elsewhere. That's why it's so important for MK to be engaging and to be on the forefront of discussions like this and on the forefront of holding activities so that there's stuff there for the youngsters to take part in.
Yeah, I agree on that because I remember at uni, my masters, I had to go early because everyone was like, "Why don't you hang out?" And I was like, "Look, I've got a meeting." And they go, "What meeting have you got?" Right? Because I'm just at uni. I'm like, "Yeah, I've got a mosque meeting." And they look at me like, "What are you on? Like, who the hell? Who has a mosque meeting at like 9 p.m. or something?" And they just thought I was talking nonsense, man. They just thought, "Hey, this guy's just talking crap." But it's true. It keeps you engaged, right? And you get that. It goes back to that point, right, where I was reading a book. Which is like actually ultimately my career, like I said, I want to do finance and money, but ultimately actually if there's no purpose or impact or servitude that you're doing, it's meaningless, right? Like we're all sitting here, some of us are working from home, right? But you start to realize what's important and realizing that actually if our work doesn't have any real impact, is it even worth it? Like what we're doing, right? You could talk about chasing money and this and that, but if there's no end purpose of making an impact on the world or servitude, then is there a point?
What, let me interject on there. The whole COVID-19 situation. And the key workers who went to work. Yeah, the fact that only key workers were out there working on the front line shows that service to humanity is first and foremost. Bankers, accountants, lawyers, whatever you name it, they were all sat at home. They were on the front line. The people who were out on the front line serving humanity, giving their life on the line for the service of mankind, were key workers, were those individuals who were putting their own desires and their safety of their life on the back burner to serve humanity. And that's one thing which religion teaches, and nobody else teaches that. That always put your desires on the back burner and serve humanity first. That's the beauty of religion, which you're not going to get anywhere else.
No, I totally agree with that. And then I'm sure some of us were in health departments as well, right? Where we were doing stuff at a local level, regional level as well. In terms of so were there any massive? Donna, if you explain your challenges, you didn't feel that. So what were your challenges then? Like your early 20s, 18 to 2023. Like what were you say? Actually, that was a challenge that I didn't deal with very well. That potentially was a life lesson for some of the people watching.
For me, the biggest challenge was not knowing what I wanted to do in my life. Not having any defined career path. Even when I went to university, I did accounting and finance, and the pure reasoning behind that was because I liked maths. So I was like, let me do something that involves numbers. And when I actually did accounting and finance and found out that it's not really got much to do with numbers, it's more about balance sheets and all of these things, it kind of put me off. And again, I was like, I don't want to become an accountant. So I stuck it out. I did it for 3 years. But the best decision that I made was to go to Africa during university. So I took 3 months out and I went to Burkina Faso and I lived and worked out there for a charity. I did this outside of Jamaat. And for me, that was the best decision that I made in my life. Just from a perspective of self-development, trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. So that gave me a different perspective of life. So I think that was good. That came out of me going university was that. So for me, the biggest challenge at that stage was, what am I doing with my life? What direction am I going in? And even a bigger challenge than that was to actually realize that I don't have any direction. Because at that age, you're not really concerned about, what's going to happen, buying a house and all of those things. The kids, today might be a lot more aware, but at that stage that, I wasn't even thinking about any of those things. I was more concerned about, when the next football match is, or, when am I going to see my friends? So the biggest challenge I'd say I faced at that age was not having a clear path or clear direction. And again, I didn't utilize my channels. I didn't reach out.
Do you think, for me personally, I just think even now, I don't think I've got super clarity on exactly where I'm going. I feel like I have clarity on who I am and what I'm good at, what I'm bad at, and what I enjoy. And it's like I can only think.
Imran. Yeah. No one's got clarity of who they are.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay.
Do you know what? Can I ask 2 questions actually?
Yeah, go for it.
Because to me, it's beneficial. One question which we need to answer is the fact that how do we make a choice, or how can we make it easier for ourselves to know what we want to do from an early stage? Because that's everyone's issue. I'm 17, I don't know what to do. And the second issue I want to touch on is what Danish pointed out, and Danish said this in the beginning, that maybe our generation or a generation younger than us, my brother's 20 years old, he knows to some extent what he wants to do. And the question is, why is that? Why is the younger generation maybe more inclined to know what they want to do? One question. Second question is, how do we create that clarity, or how can we create that clear path within your head to know what you want to do at a young age? Is there an answer? Is there not an answer? What is it? Are there social factors? Is it social media? What is it that helps us make a career decision at a young age? Is there an answer to that?
I think you've Imran, I'll let you talk in a second, but I think Sabaz, you've hit the nail on the head by talking about social media. When we were growing up, there was no social media. We didn't have platforms such as these where, you could just log online, watch a 30-minute show of just random people talking, but actually taking something away from that. We didn't have that. We perhaps, had Khuddam or people older than us that we perhaps looked up to, but didn't have these sort of conversations where, what should I be doing? But with this social media age now, that content is so readily available to a point where I think the younger generation, they perhaps see a lot more of people, in banking, or they see doctors, or they see, whatever career is. I think there's just a lot more visibility around different careers.
What do they see?
I think what it is that they see more potential in doing lots of different things. Like, people have the opportunities are bigger, right? So Danish, you mentioned that actually going to university maybe isn't necessary right now, right? People might not want to go to university, and they see different opportunities for them, right? When you go on social media, there's so many different career paths that are created, right? You could be an artist, you can make money with social media now, just selling your art. You can be doing, some people
let me give you an example. So your Instagram post, right? I'm sure that they've had a very major impact on some of the younger youths out there. Watching you, they might, to a degree, that they might be even, motivated to go become a murabbi or go into journalism just by watching your videos. Just be like, do you know what? I really like what this guy does. Let me see if I can kind of replicate him. Okay, he's a murabbi. Okay, maybe going to Jamia is not so bad after all. So, just those sort of things.
Yeah, okay. What do you think, Anjum? What's your opinion on it?
I think the introduction of Jamia into the UK has had a big impact. Personally.
Sorry, I missed that. What was that?
The introduction of Jamia to the UK.
The introduction of Jamia
to the UK.
Why do you say that?
Right.
I personally think that it's bred a series of students and missionaries that are much more approachable than, say, when I was growing up. Because when I was growing up, it was it was seen. I'm not saying they were, but it was very much seen as the kind of old Pakistani. They don't really get our culture. They don't really get what we're going through. Therefore, I'm not going to talk to them about, is Jamia the right way, or things about God, or things about social stuff, about, drink, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is, because they were seen as very, very much the old school kind of thingy. Whereas I think with Jamia now coming to the UK, there's been obviously for the last, we're talking almost 10 years now, of students graduating, but also the Jamia students as well, with them interacting with us and the younger people. I think the positive impacts of that have been massive, and as the Danish said, that's allowed people to now explore other things that previously they might not have thought about.
And if
social media is a massive impact.
Yes, yeah, I 100% believe so. Like, even if you take it away from Jamia and religion and stuff. So that, for example, Imran, he does his trading videos on his Instagram page. I started following him. I have no interest in trading. I don't understand it. But actually watching his videos make me think, you know what, this is something that I could potentially do. So just, even just little things like that. It's just little, markers, just planting seeds in people's heads that this is a potential career that I could go down, or this is a potential career that kind of interests me. We didn't have that growing up.
Yeah, I agree.
I also think it's like less. The next generation is less judgmental. They can see good and bad, I think, a lot clearer. And maybe if somebody's done something wrong but is willing to reform, they're much less judgmental than maybe the previous generation. Maybe that's just social media.
But I think also there's been a slight change in attitude of parents, especially kind of with younger parents now as well.
Yeah.
I think if I go back to my generation, I'm the youngest of three. My parents are now in their 60s. Very much, when I was growing up, they were the bog standard careers: doctor, lawyer, engineer. These were the ones that were being pushed. I think now with a new the new younger people coming up, the people have seen the value of things like the internet and media and all that kind of stuff. That again has opened up thinking. I think parents have now opened up to thoughts that to be successful, you don't need to go into these the previously seen existing roles that people used to always go into. There was that joke that we all have about Asian mums of my son's a doctor, my son's an engineer. All right. Now it's a case of my son's driving a brand new Audi, my son's driving the brand new BM. Yeah, but what does he do? He does something in the internet. I don't know what he does, but he does something.
Yeah, but that begs the question. Now hold on. If that mentality has changed from my son's a doctor to my son's driving an Audi S3, does that mean that they are more inclined to materialism because they came here because they were chasing that materialism or they wanted a better life, and then they are living their dreams to their kids, and that shift has changed?
I do think that shift has changed. I think because of the economic climate, especially of the last kind of 5 to 10 years, where notoriously the younger generation are saying, every expert is saying the younger people are going to have a tougher life than their parents, and it's going to be the first time in about 4 or 5 generations that's been changed. I think that's where now I think parents are starting to realise maybe the materialism side of it, but it's that successfulness to make sure they're comfortable. That at the end of the day, not everybody can go and be a billionaire, but can they at least afford a house? They can cover a roof over their head. Can they give three meals?
Because I've noticed, I've come across a lot of cases like this, even on my Instagram page, where people have mentioned and said to me that, look, my parents are disappointed in me because I've not lived up to their desires and wishes of being a lawyer or a doctor or a dentist, and I've fallen short of that, and it's caused rifts in our house because I've not been able to come up to the benchmark. So the question then begs to ask is, do we set limitations, or do we set aspirations or desires on our kids in terms of work-wise, and does that have a detrimental effect on them as they grow up and study further in the future?
I think the point is, I think it comes from the right place. Parents want their children to be successful. They want them to have a roof over their head, 3 meals, provide for the family, all that kind of stuff. And I think where that's why they've always seen these traditional roles as being well paid roles, and therefore they will ensure that their children and their family will get looked after. I suppose that's where the challenge is now, where you're talking about where children are saying, I've fallen short of their aspirations. I suppose my thing would be then to show to their parents and say, maybe I'm not doing a dentistry or a medical degree, but the field I'm going into, there's still lots of opportunities. I can do X, Y, Z, and I can still be, in theory, you can go to any field and become you can still become a CEO in any field now.
I think you
don't have to go to the traditional roles to become somebody rich and famous. Well, not famous anyway.
I was speaking to a business person who himself wants kids, maybe to go down the standard route of a path, right? But he was saying, if my kids had a plan and said to me, look, I want to do photography, I want to do this, but if they had a clear plan of how they're going to do it and what they want to do, would let them do that? Maybe sometimes parents worry that they're just doing something and there's nothing there at the end, right? It's that risk, isn't it? Of if he does this, he might not get anything, he might earn money, or how does he survive? How does he look after himself? Or how does she look after himself? Right?
For me here, it's going back to the point of that it's a generation thing, where perhaps our parents' generation, their measure of success was siloed into only a handful of careers, whereas with us growing up now and us having children, because we've been exposed to so many other avenues and so many other ways of becoming successful, is that perhaps when we bring our kids up, we won't have the same measure of success as our parents did. And I think that's what we're experiencing now with the younger generations becoming parents, is that they have a vast variety of careers that they'll be willing their children to go down. because they see potential in those careers. Because, of course, as Anjum said, no parents want their children to not be successful. That's every parent's dream for their children. But I think the measure of success is different for us than it was for our parents.
I'm sorry, what's the reason for that?
I just think we're just exposed. Like, so for example, speaking for myself, my parents moved here when I was, how old was I? I was 10, 11 years old. So, I'm an immigrant. None of my, family generation has been brought up in this society, in this culture. And I just feel like there's just so many more opportunities in this society, in which you can become successful. Now, if you were to look at success back home, unless you're a doctor or an engineer or, one of these fancy careers, you're not really classed as being successful. Whereas here, you could, you could be, I don't know, you could be anything, but you could be classed as successful. Like for me, I've got friends in so many different avenues of life. So I've got friends who are barbers, for example, and they're very successful in what they do. They have very successful businesses. They make a lot of money if you want to put material, measurements on that. But, if I was to say to my parents, I want to become a barber, they will probably, slap me, right? And it's that sort of thing. Like, if huh?
I said the first shave your hair off.
Yeah, exactly, right? And it's like, my thing is, if my son turned around to me and said, and what Imran said earlier, is that the person that he was talking to, if they've got a clear goal in which they feel like they can be successful, I'm not going to stop them. Whereas my parents would have been like, oh, I'm disappointed in you. And just going back to the point, what you made, Sabah, someone reached out to you and said that, my parents are disappointed in me. And I just think that, it's just a generation thing for them, because the measure of success is different. Whereas the younger generations, the measure of success is different, because we've experienced so much more than they have in this culture, in this society. Whereas
Dennis, can I ask you a question? Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
It's a very personal question. And I think we can all answer this question. And I think it's important that the questions are answered, because it would just show what values and morals we hold dear to ourselves. And the question would be, do you think your parents are proud of you? And if so, why are they?
I think they are now. They weren't with my earlier career choices or my earlier decisions that I made in my life. I think where I am now at this point in life, they are proud of me. So I think one thing to take, just for not just for my career, but more so for how I've developed as a person, developed as a human. So for me, my parents being proud in me was never linked to what career I was doing. For me, the pride in parents was when I'm doing things, a good human would, or a decent son would. And again, that's going to be different for every child. That's going to be different for every parent. But I think ultimately my parents just wanted me to, be a good human being on a straight path. Just a decent human being, really. And I think I'm at a point now, I'm almost 30 years of age, where I'm just about achieving that now. I feel like I mean, it's still got a long way to go, but I think that's what they're proud of.
So can I ask? Yeah, sorry, can we hold on to this?
Yeah, go on.
Because I feel like the reason why I asked this question is I think we'll come to a conclusion at the end. But sorry, carry on, because I've learned a lot from even what Danish just said. And it puts life into perspective. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, Anjum, why don't you go next, and I'll go last.
That is a really difficult one. I've never really thought about it. I think there's some aspects of my life that I think my parents are proud of. I've done a lot of work with IEEE. I've gone on these trips to Africa, and I think that kind of stuff, I think especially my dad does feel that, he's proud of me for going out there. And, anybody who's been on those trips know how difficult they can be. And, at the same time, I still think that I'm still in the process of, I think we all are to a certain degree still learning, and we are still going to make mistakes. And I think every now and again we will make mistakes that do disappoint our parents. And I don't think any of us are we're consciously making those decisions because we want to disappoint them or we want to upset them. But it's because, given the information at the time, we thought that was the right thing to do. But I think that's something that even if I ask them right now, they would still say, yeah, they still make mistakes now. So, we are never perfect. We will always be improving ourselves as best we can. I think if I look at my career-wise, I think as Danish, I think when I first started, no, I think they're now becoming a little bit more comfortable and they've understood what I do and the kind of things I'm involved with at work, and they are a little bit more proud of what I've achieved at work. But I think it depends on what part of my life are we referring to. It's my spiritual side, my work life, my home life. I think there'll be elements that they'll be proud of, and all of them, but there'll also be elements that they're not so proud of, just because maybe they don't understand the decisions I've made.
There was already common denominator, which we've already clocked from both stories. But go on, let's all tell our stories and let's see what the common denominator will be.
Yeah, I think so. For me, I grew up. Me and my dad always has like banter with me, and he just like criticizes me all the time, like what I've done wrong. So for him to give me a positive thing, saying, "Look, proud of you," was something. I think the only time, well, not the only time, but I think when my involvement in Jamaat has for him been something he's sort of proud of, right? That I've actively sort of on my own foot, doing phenomenal deal work and doing stuff. He's proud of me sort of doing that and having that relationship with God, because ultimately, I come from a family where my great grandfather came to this country in 1919, so quite some time in the UK. So for us, like faith has always been a big part of our family, and so for him to see that I was myself kind of finding sort of God and also involved in Jamaat was something positive. Career-wise, that was he was okay with that, proud, but he was more proud of actually having that spiritual connection and doing stuff for Jamaat, doing things for others, and actually being caring and when you do things out of kindness and the goodness of your heart and do things for others, that's where he's always been much more impressed. Not me doing or achieving my masters or whatever, right? That was less. You could see it in his eyes, the way in which my father responds, my parents respond, right? There's less. It's something good, but it's materialistic. Right? You actually go out and do something for somebody else, another human being. It's far more impactful and it's far more, something that parents are proud of, right? Like my son has done this for humanity. That's something that for them it was much more impactful than all the other kind of material things that I've achieved. From a degree.
So I'm 26. I've got 2 kids. I'm married. Been married for 3. Well, I should know that. I'm married 4 years. The proudest moment of my life for my parents has been when that letter came through the post and my dad shed a tear. And even now, when my dad comes to see me in London, he says, "Oh, look, we're proud of you. You serve the Jamaat and whatever, and your service to Jamaat is what makes us happy." Then you've got everything else down the line. Yeah, you know how to handle money and whatever, and this and that, and you got your life in shape. But Danish mentioned family. Andrew mentioned IAAA. Imran mentioned MK, and obviously my VUC. So everything which our parents are proud of comes down to our service to humanity and service to our faith and service to our religion. That's not to dumb down our careers. Of course, they're also important. But the fact that we mentioned our religion and our service to humanity first, and then mention our careers, just shows to me that for us as Khuddam, as youth members of Khuddam and Ahmadiyya, our parents are more proud, and we recognize that, and we appreciate and feel proud when our parents feel proud of us when we serve the Jamaat. So yeah, of course, money and everything is important, and money makes the world go round. You got to put food on the table, but at the end of the day, it's what our parents and families are proud of is our link with Allah the Almighty, and we're doing service to humanity because Allah Ta'ala says you can't fulfill my rights until you fulfill the rights of my creation. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to, that our parents are proud of our service and our link with the Jamaat.
I think that's beautifully said. To that, that's pretty good. I mean, just a way of ending then, I think somebody you sort of done it quite eloquently, which is actually, when we go back in full circle about figuring it all out, it ultimately comes down to, like you said, we've all discussed what our parents were proud of the most, and what we're proud of is actually servitude of humanity, right? And ultimately it's faith. So no matter what you choose, because that is at your core, then you can't go wrong, right? Whatever you choose as a career path or figure out, as long as you have that element of servitude for mankind. And I think I read a quote that as a Muslim said that whatever you choose in your field, be the best. Whether it's a craftsmanship, as long as you're the best, you can serve humanity, the Jamaat ultimately, right? That was what was said. Sorry.
I'm sorry, man. One last thing I wanted just to my 2 pence worth, and then I'll be quiet. But the fact that, alhamdulillah, by the grace of God, all you guys are successful in the work that you've done, you know, Allah Ta'ala will never stop helping you and guiding you on the right path as long as you're serving Him and offering your namaz and serving the Jamaat. And the fact that we are all part of Khudam and MD and we're all serving the Jamaat in some way, shape or form, and we've also got a career and we are not jobless and we are doing well, but the forefront of our motive and our aim is to serve the Jamaat, everything else will fall into play. Like if you chase God, the world will chase you. And I think that's really important to remember that. Look, always fulfill your rights to God, because Allah will never leave you high and dry as long as your forefront is serving humanity and offering your namaz and praying 5 times a day and being the best person you can. I think that's the beauty of faith. You chase God, the world will chase you.
I think that, again, you said, like, you know, fulfill your rights to Allah first, and everything else is sort of taken care of. I mean, does anyone else, Anjum or Danis, do you have anything to say before we kind of wrap up the first episode?
No, I think there's you couldn't have offended the show better than,
exactly.
wise words.
Jazakallah, boys. So this is obviously the first episode. Next episode we'll have Chai. If not, we might be in person. So maybe I'll make some. But Jazakallah again. Thanks a lot for viewers for watching. You know, stay tuned. This is going to be hopefully a regular occurrence. If you've got topics or things you want to discuss, you know, ping us on Instagram or social media, and we'll, you know, these topics. Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum.